gravity is not a law. Albert Einstein says it's bullshit. So fuck gravity. It's not. There's no such thing as gravity. It's time, space is actually pushing us down. It's not the gravitate. There's no like intergalactical, force just yanking us, and then the sun and all that. No. That doesn't make any sense. Why don't we just go crashing into the sun? So it's like there's a space time. It's relative. It's all So it's actually hard to explain. But you also have the Know Nothing Party. The American Know Nothing Party was this old in 1850s and 60s. It basically died down, but it was right after the Whigs, right before the rise of the Republican Party, whose big thing was to stop slavery. But then right afterwards, the Democrats, who you had the boss, you had a political machine actually here in Louisville, run by John Henry Wayland, who was a Confederate. He ran with John Hunt Morgan's men. He was a courier for them, but he also used the immigrants and the working class people to his advantage while being a racist. So he was like, opening the opportunity for all people except for the black folks. And so there was the old saying that basically all politics is who could screw the black man over, the most. And so that's how basically the Germans and the Irish and all these people who became white had to buy into the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture, which was a white supremacist culture and a bigoted culture and a culture of ignorance and a culture of actually more, puritanical and more strict rules, higher temperance. You couldn't drink. The Catholics would drink. So the Germans and the Irish, they brought the love of liquor and beer to America, but the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, English-speaking white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who had founded America, who actually were against Christmas. That's how Puritan they were. They said if you celebrate Christmas, they would fine you 5 shillings. So that's the Protestants, right? Protestants are basically all non-Catholics. Catholics is the universal religion. Catholic Church ran Europe for about 500 years. And they were bloody, and they were psycho. They become nicer, right, with Pope Francis. More of a spiritual guide as a Dalai Lama type figure instead of a emperor, which is how they had used the Catholic Church for a long time, actually, was with the emperor and the empire, the Holy Roman Empire, actually. So the Germans, there's a lot of Catholics in Germany because the Holy Roman Empire was actually in the Bohemian, the Kingdom of Bohemia. So the Czech Republic is where the Holy Roman Empire, which was an empire for 1,000 years, is a political alliance which included the Catholic Pope and a lot of the kings of all these other countries. So, but I digress. The Protestants and Catholics are warring against each other. Probably legitimately, I would take the Protestant side in Europe, okay? But in America, I don't take their side. In fact, they seem like just total assholes. They're just bitter about, other crap that had happened. But in Europe, you have the Catholics who is running the right-wing governments and fascism, totalitarianism, right? So you have the white, male, patriarchal, totalitarian fascist system, which we see in America, too. We see that from the beginning all the way until today. But it came from somewhere. And it came from Europe, right? So the continuity to really totalitarian fascism, hierarchy, it stems for a long time. And Christianity is definitely a part of it because Protestants broke away from the Catholic Church, which was the oppressive, authoritarian sort of authority, right, when it comes to what Christianity was and what it wasn't, when they decided that the Virgin Mother of Jesus was a virgin, in fact, and it was, immaculately conceived. There was no sperm. It absolutely wasn't Joseph. She did not have anybody's dick inside of her. The baby is God's. Unless God, he's the only person that could have done the thing, done the deed, right, done the damn thing, without her consent, might I add, so he's a rapist. But 1855 Know Nothing riots, okay, so you got the Germans and you got the Catholics and the Protestants. And in Europe, you had the Catholic right-wing church was basically fucking up a lot of things. The Spanish Inquisition, if you weren't Catholic, they would murder you, right? So there was the Crusades. There was a lot of war and bloodshed that the church had actually backed. But they would back it with a Christian king, right? So if the person believed in Jesus, and then they were doing it for the sake of the religion, right? And like I said, it's basically, it's a spiritual group anyway. So they're getting all their authority is derived from the false notions of their followers, of their flocks, of their vast and lavish ideas. It's kind of crazy how you can get poor German communities to build a vast church, but when you find out that the church is the center of the social relations, then it becomes more important. So really the spirituality and the religion is kind of taking advantage of the idea that people need to organize amongst themselves. And so they would build a nice, beautiful building in order for people to, you know, to inspire people to come to the masses and give all their money up to hear a couple speeches. So they brought that same conflict here. The Protestants are the one that founded America. The English-speaking white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, they were the, you know, King George, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. They believed in freedom of religion, but they were mostly Christians or influenced heavily by Christianity. And the Puritans are the one that founded, right? Plymouth Rock were Puritans, and the Pilgrims, and then the Christian massacres of all the natives. So you have, it was founded by the Protestants, and then you have this influx of Catholics coming into America. So why do you have all these Catholics? The Irish are Catholic for a long time. So the English church adopt a Anglican Protestant religion, and they said the Church of England, everybody has to adhere to the Church of England, but the Irish Catholics, they remain steadfast, right? So that's why they're Catholic. They're just backwards and dumb and poor peasants. England keeps on, you know, messing with the poor Irish, and the Irish have nothing, so they hold on to the idea of there is a God, and the poor will make it rich, and the, you know, the powerless will eventually be able to stomp the powerful, however the church, since St. Patrick, right? So-called St. Patrick, who the Catholic Church co-opted. It makes no sense. St. Patrick massacred the Druids, who were the original Irish. So there's a genocide. But the other thing I want to point out is in Germany, which is relevant for the Gripshovers in my ancestry, is that in Germany, 1870 to 1871, you had the Franco-Prussian War, where the Prussians had defeated France, and they were called Germany, 39 different German-speaking nations finally called it one country and called it all Germany. And so they founded the Republic of Germany. And so the Catholic and Protestant sort of debate or debacle, you have in Germany, you have the Otto von Bismarck as the general who has 3 wars for German unification. He eventually comes out and passes a Kulturkampf, which is really, it's anti all new religious orders, but it's designed to attack the Catholic Church, since the Catholic Church, remember, in Germany was highly ingrained. So his Kulturkampf was anti-Catholic, not because he's like just a bigoted person against religious people or, you know, anybody who believes in Jesus, but because the Catholic Church has created so many atrocities throughout the years. And also I think he came from the Prussian, or the Protestant Junker class, right? So that's Otto von Bismarck is straight up anti-Catholic. And so you have a lot of anti-Catholicism, a lot of William of Orange and England, the Protestant. The Glorious Revolution was about Catholics and Protestants. Ireland and England is Catholics and Protestants. Northern Ireland, right? There's actually 2 islands or 2 main bodies of island, right? For England or Great Britain, there's the big mass, which is mostly England, but Scotland at the top. And then you got Ireland, which is Ireland at the bottom, but then you got Northern Ireland, which is basically a bunch of Uncle Toms to the United Kingdom. They're always kissing butt to the crown, to the monarchy, to the queen, to the you know, the failed empire of the 18th and 19th centuries. But they heavily influenced the United States. So they brought that debacle to America. So you got the Protestants, the Catholics who are fighting in Europe, and then they come to America and they bring that same fight here. Now it's the exact opposite here. The Protestants are the one that's in control. The Protestants are the ones that have been here for the, for 50 years. That's another thing. So you have the Revolution happened in 1776 and then 1855. So one generation, people have been born here for 70 years and they act like this is their country, right? So their parents, could have been straight up, out of Ireland or straight up out of England, and they were here for one generation. Automatically, this is my country. So yeah, it's incredible. It's actually really amazing because when it comes to, I don't know, I guess if you had to kill Indians and stuff, you had to go through so much turmoil. Once you finally got your dirt, then of course you'd want to hold on to it and pass it on to your lineage and your bloodlines, forever and ever, so that way your legacy will always be solidified based upon, property rights and land ownership. Where am I going with this? I don't know. So yeah, Know Nothing Riots, 1855. Know Nothing Riots. This is the most important event of the 19th century. It's not the most important event, but it is a very important event because 1869 is when my German ancestors came here and they ran away from Otto von Bismarck's War of German Unification. But the 1855 Know Nothing Riots were different types of Germans. So we get to see different things. We see continuity, right? We get to see that there was racism before the Civil War. So there was racism against Germans and Irish, and anti-foreign, I guess, an anti-European, foreign European element, and then there's the anti-Catholic element. So there's anti-Irish, anti-German, so it's ethnic. It's an ethnic riot, and it's the biggest ethnic riot in Kentucky. So it's the biggest, it's not a war, but it seems like a precursor to a war. And so you had two sets of Germans. The first Germans were the 1848ers, right? The 48ers were your radicals, your August Willicks, your people that was your communists, your socialists, and your radicals, your Johann Most. Johann Most, the the scientific revolutionary, I don't know, Johann Most, okay, but he was a radical, right? So you had all these German agitators, the Pullman strike, and sort of everywhere, really, in the gangs of New York, okay? When I think about the 1855 Know Nothing Riots and my German ancestors, I think about the gangs of New York. You have the Daniel Day-Lewis, the guy with the blue hat, and he was like, got the American eagle in his eye. He's the nativist. He's the guy who was born here for one generation, is an arrogant bastard, thinks that he deserves it, and this is New York, right? So I guess in New York, the Eastern Seaboard, they've been there for a lot longer, but in Kentucky, we've only been here since 1774. White people in general, 1774, so that's only 250 years, okay? So the Germans have been here for, 3/5 of the entire history, only a little bit more than half of it, but that's it. That's how long, this country's been established, this tiny experiment. And amazing that it's actually got this far and it hasn't totally broken down. So the 1855 Know Nothing Riots, right? The biggest ethnic riot that happened in Kentucky, in Louisville. It also happened in Cincinnati, and it was the nativists. It was the Millard Fillmore. Okay, so when you think of you got the Whig Party, and you got Millard Fillmore. And who is Millard Fillmore? Let's find out. So Millard Fillmore is a tab that I have up here. I have about like 20 tabs, and then I'm going to read you some of Kentucky through the centuries. And it's all about the 1855 Know Nothing Riots, because basically you can learn all about life when it comes to, if the Republican Party goes to the Know Nothing Party, this video would be so important. If they don't, which I think they will, I see the appeal of it, right? Be against Catholics. For some reason, just be against Catholics. You just stand up for not only Christianity and the culture wars that Bill O'Reilly's talking about, but be for Protestant Christianity. That's what this country was founded on, the Protestant Christians, not the Catholics. So if you're going to go back to the roots. But anyways, and the anti-foreign, so there's anti-immigrant element too, so that would appeal to the racist, right? Appeal to the native, the people that are here, nobody else can come in. This is our country. It can appeal to a lot of different people, really, black and white. So, you know, they throw the immigrants under the bus, right? Throw the Mexicans under the bus, throw the Germans and the Irish under the bus in order to get you some votes. But you could also use it the opposite way, and you could get the newly coming immigrants to vote for you, which is what a lot of people did. So Millard Fillmore, real fast, he's the 13th president, the last Whig president. But he was also know-nothing. So Whigs, know-nothings, they're like the same people. Whigs are Henry Clay, know-nothings are Millard Fillmore. So wherever the policies differentiate, that's where Whigs and know-nothings are the same thing. So basically Henry Clay, you say Henry Clay is the founder of the Know-Nothing Party. So that's Kentucky. And actually, they did blame the foreign vote. They said that he wasn't president because they couldn't get enough nativists to vote for Henry Clay. So Henry Clay's a racist, bastard, slave-owning piece of shit, right? He's the patriarch, white, fascist, totalitarian.